LoreWarrior Armour, Scimitar medium hover tank. Overview. After the success of the Saracen, Scarborough Limited released two more medium hover tanks based on the Saracen chassis and internal systems. The first release was the Scimitar, whose weapon systems varied slightly from its predecessor. At first, the Saracen used a long-range missile rack as its main armament. However, its secondary weaponry, 3 short-range missile racks, could not fire at the long-range missile rack's short range, and the long-range missiles couldn't fire at the short-range missile rack's extreme range. Thus, the Saracen couldn't concentrate its firepower against one target. Scarborough engineers then replaced the long-range missiles with an autocannon to solve the range firepower problem. Although the autocannon had problems acquiring targets under 90 meters, which was the SRM's short range, it could easily acquire targets at the SRM's medium range, which the LRMs could not. In addition, the autocannon had range comparable to the long-range missiles. 5 years after releasing the Saracen, Scarborough introduced the Scimitar. Initial sales were high because of the success of the Saracen. Although sales have fluctuated over the past years, Scarborough Limited continues to produce the Scimitar. Capabilities. The Scimitar is a better designed vehicle than the Saracen. Like most hovercraft, it's very fast, making it easy to engage and disengage an enemy. Its armour is as thick as that on many medium mechs. The Armstrong Autocannon 5 is often used on mechs, such as the Clint. Scarborough engineers chose this weapon because it had already been proven in combat. On the average, the autocannon's range and hitting power is better than the Saracen's LRM-10 rack. The autocannon weighs 3 tons more than the long-range missile rack, but 1 ton of autocannon ammo has more rounds than 1 ton of LRM ammo. The success of the Saracen's short-range missile system prompted Scarborough engineers to use several smaller short-range missile racks than one large. The Saracen's Guided Technologies SRM-2 racks were also installed in the Scimitar because the Guided Technologies equipment was reliable, and because Saracen customers would likely buy a vehicle for which they already had replacement parts. Other than the autocannon, the only new systems installed in the Scimitar are the communications and weapons guidance systems. Based on the original models in the Saracen, the Scarborough Torquay and Scarborough Trackey systems needed slight modification to accommodate the new weapons. Battle history. Scarborough Limited was correct. Those who had bought the Saracen immediately bought the Scimitar. Because the two vehicles were so similar, a Scimitar could replace a damaged Saracen without reducing a Lance's effectiveness. This ease of replacement caused the undoing of a Lao light armour group. Fighting Saracens on Pella 2 for over 8 months, the Lao armour was almost out of supplies. To regain supplies, the Lao commander devised a plan to raid the Marek supply dump. First, tanks armed with short-range weapons would move in from the north and attack under the range of the Saracens' long-range missiles. While most of the Saracens were engaged, the rest of the armour would attack from the south and steal as many supplies as possible. After the supplies were taken, the first element would retreat back into the hills. Unbeknownst to the Lao commander, however, Marek scimitars had replaced the Saracens guarding the supply dump, and although Lao recon had seen the scimitars, it assumed that the tanks were Saracens. The Lao attack proceeded as planned. The short-range units moved in quickly from the north, loosing short-range missiles and laser fire. Instead of finding themselves under the range of Saracen long-range missiles, however, they found themselves in the short range of autocannons. The scimitars tore the Lao light element to shreds. The second element of the Lao force fared no better than the first. Although the first element transmitted radio messages to the Lao commander, the whole attack force had already been committed. 5 minutes after the attack had begun, every vehicle in the Lao group was either destroyed or disabled. The Lao commander sued for peace and retreated off-world. Variants. Like the Saracen, the Scimitar has no registered variants. Some crews will, however, add a larger barrel to the autocannon so that the gun looks like the super heavy autocannon found on vehicles such as the Demolisher or the Hetzer. Notable vehicles and crews: Johnston Arley, Forrest Orange, and Terry Schwartz. These 3 Steiner crewmen manned the Scimitar Who's Next in a curious raid against the planet Phelan. For holding off a combine mech lance without support, all 3 received the Mackenzie Ground Pounders Medal, one of the highest honours a vehicle crew can receive. This award is bestowed to a crew who performs bravely and successfully in the face of overwhelming odds. Ah, yes, the Scimitar. Now, I have to admit, I got to a point in this in TRO 3026 where apparently my brain just shut off and I skipped a few, and the Scimitar was one of those that I went over. But it's a 35-ton vehicle. Its a hover movement power plant is a Conley 105 ICE engine. Its cruiser 86, flank at 130 kph, with armour provided by a Protect-Tech 7. It has its Armstrong Autocannon 5 with its 2 guided technologies, SRM-2, manufactured by Scarborough Limited. And yes, the communication systems is a Scarborough Talkie 2, and the targeting and tracking is a Scarborough Tracky 2. That one, I almost fucking broke out laughing when I read that one the first time. Other than that, yeah, it moves a pretty decent pace, 8 and 12 on the board. And it's got obviously enough heat sinks to deal with it. Its armor-wise, though, it's okay. It's not brilliant. 21 armor on the front, which is pretty decent, but then the sides is 18, the back is 18. So basically, like most tanks, flank them, and you're going to penetrate a lot easier. 21 armor on the turrets as well. And yes, it's got its turret-mounted AC, but it's and SRMs as well. And its ammo is luckily in the body as... Oh yeah, the ammo's both in the body. I thought one of them was stored in the turret. But yeah, the Scimitar. It's the hover tanks are very, very common actually in BattleTech's universe. Very few of them ever seem to make them into the games, and when they do, they don't really act like hover tanks. Look at MechWarrior 5 for the most recent example, where they have a hover vehicle in there, and the thing doesn't drift, right? It just moves around the ground like a tank. It's very weird. But I mean, other games have done it as well. It's a whole different set of physics that they've got written in, so I mean, I understand why. The best implementation I've seen of it really is Living Legends, where you can spawn in numerous hover vehicles and get all the benefits of using a hover vehicle, i.e. being able to skim across water without losing speed, being able to very quickly, like, basically strafe around a target rather than having to, rotate on your treads. Totally different style of combat. So they're quite interesting, and they get, as I said, they get a lot of use in BattleTech's universe because there are so many different worlds that have very rough terrain that things like hover vehicles can just go straight over. It's one of the benefits on the table as well. If there's water, hover tanks can go straight over it with no penalty. They don't have to worry about drowning if it's too deep, or do any particular special piloting roles, or driving roles in this case. So they're quite useful for that. But yeah, that was the Scimitar medium hover tank. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you have a good week. I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.